What
The
are you
taxi
doing?
lurched forward,
Watch out!
tires squealing as Mr. Thomas cut into the curb lane and slammed the brakes right in front of the glass tower.
Are you
A
blind?
security guard spun around, startled. A few office workers stepped back. Mr. Thomas didn't care. His hands were shaking so hard the steering wheel rattled. Patricia was right there, walking out with 3 coworkers, laughing, polished, untouchable. Mr. Thomas leaned out the window and called, loud enough that everyone nearby turned. "Patricia, my daughter, over here!" Patricia's laughter died mid-breath. Her face changed like a mask snapping into place. Wide eyes, tight mouth, a quick scan of who was watching. She started walking faster, not toward him like a daughter, toward him like someone trying to stop a problem before it grows teeth. Her coworkers followed, curious. Mr. Thomas's chest swelled, hopeful, foolishly happy. She had called him. She needed him. Maybe, just maybe, this would be one of those days where she'd smile and say, "Dad, thank you," and introduce him like she used to when she was a child. Patricia reached the taxi, didn't touch the front passenger door, didn't even look at him properly. She said brightly, loud and wrong, "Hi, yes, thank you. Are you the Uber?" The words punched Mr. Thomas so hard he forgot how to breathe. He blinked once. "Patricia, it's me." Patricia's smile stiffened. She leaned closer to the window, teeth still showing, and whispered through the smile like someone talking through a locked jaw. "Dad, please, just please." Then she turned to her coworkers, voice rising again, cheerful again, sharp again. "This is my Uber. He's just early." One coworker squinted at the taxi's peeling paint and dented door. "Uber? Are you sure? It looks—" Patricia laughed too quickly. "It's fine. I'm not picky." Mr. Thomas felt his throat tighten. He tried to speak, but all that came out was a small rasp. Patricia opened the back door and slid in without waiting for him to respond. The back seat. Like he was hired. Like he was nothing. Mr. Thomas stared ahead, hands locked to the wheel. He could feel eyes on him, the security guard, the passing workers, the coworkers who still hovered, watching Patricia climb into a taxi like it was a normal thing for someone like her. He forced his voice out low. "Patricia, why are you in the back?" Patricia's reply was a whisper, quick and urgent. "Drive, please." The coworkers waved. Patricia waved back. The tower swallowed them as they turned away. Mr. Thomas pulled off the curb. For a full minute, there was nothing but engine hum and the sound of Patricia's heels tapping lightly against the taxi's floor, as if she couldn't sit still. Mr. Thomas finally spoke. "Say it again." Patricia didn't answer. "Say it again," he repeated, louder now. "Tell me I didn't hear you call me an Uber." Patricia's voice came out brittle. "Dad, it's not like that." "It's exactly like that." He glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Look at me, Patricia." She kept her eyes on her phone. Her thumb scrolled without stopping. "Look at me," he said, and his voice cracked on the last word. Patricia stopped scrolling. Slowly she lifted her face, but her gaze slid away as soon as it met the mirror. "I'm tired." "You're tired, and I'm what, convenient?" Patricia pressed her lips together. Mr. Thomas swallowed. "Do you know what it felt like, standing there and hearing you, Dad, hearing you pretend you don't know me?" Patricia's shoulders rose and fell with a sharp inhale. "I don't understand." "I understand perfectly." His grip tightened. "You were ashamed. That's the word. You were ashamed of me." Patricia's voice sharpened, defensive. "I'm not ashamed of you." He nodded once, like he'd heard a lie so many times it stopped surprising him. "Then why didn't you say, 'This is my father'?" Silence. Mr. Thomas waited. The road stretched ahead, bright with headlights and indifferent to heartbreak. Patricia whispered, "It's complicated." Mr. Thomas's jaw clenched. "No, complicated is traffic. Complicated is bills. Complicated is raising a child alone. This is simple." Patricia's voice cracked. "Dad, please, just take me home." He felt the sting behind his eyes and hated it. He hated that he still wanted to protect her, even now, even after she'd cut him in front of strangers. He drove.
He didn't speak again until they turned into her neighborhood, the clean, guarded streets, the kind of neighborhood where men like him were only supposed to pass through, not belong. Patricia shifted in the back seat. "You can drop me at the corner." Mr. Thomas hit the brakes a little harder than necessary. "At the corner." Patricia leaned forward, urgent. "Dad, please, there's a doorman."
Mr. Thomas stared forward. "So the doorman can't see your father?" Patricia's breath caught. "That's not—" He turned his head slightly. "Get out." The words were quiet, but they landed like a door slamming. Patricia froze. "Dad!" "Get out, Patricia." She opened the door with shaking hands and stepped onto the sidewalk. Before she could close it, Mr. Thomas finally looked at her, really looked. "When you were little, you used to run to this car. You used to jump in the front and tell everyone, 'My dad drives the best taxi.'" Patricia's eyes filled. Mr. Thomas's voice dropped. "Now you sit in the back." Patricia whispered, "I'm sorry." Mr. Thomas nodded as if he hadn't heard anything worth holding on to. "Good night." He drove away before she could say more. That night, Mr. Thomas didn't sleep. He sat at his kitchen table with a cup of tea that went cold, listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of someone laughing in another apartment, someone's family intact, someone's heart not split. He kept seeing Patricia's face, the mask, the smile, the whispered please, like he was the problem she needed to manage. At 2:17 a.m., he opened his phone and scrolled to old photos. Patricia at 5, missing teeth, sitting on his lap in the taxi. Patricia at 13, school uniform, a certificate held up with both hands. Patricia at 17, first day of college, arms around his neck, whispering, "Thank you, Dad. I'll make you proud." He pressed his thumb to the screen, as if he could touch that version of her and pull her back. At 5:30 a.m., he got up. Habit, survival. The body doesn't pause just because the heart is hurting. He went to the taxi stand, cleaned the windshield with a rag, and started working. The city didn't care. Passengers didn't care. Bills didn't care. By noon, Patricia's messages started. "Dad, I'm sorry. Please call me. I didn't mean it like that." He didn't reply. Not because he wanted to punish her, because he didn't trust his voice. The next day, another message. "Can we talk? I'll come to you." He stared at the screen, then locked the phone and kept driving. On the third day, she called. Mr. Thomas watched the phone ring until it stopped, then placed it face down like it was something dangerous. His friend from the taxi stand, Idris, noticed his mood by the way he drove, too careful, too slow. Idris climbed into the passenger seat during a break and said, "Thomas, you're driving like your mind is somewhere else." Mr. Thomas forced a shrug. "Just tired." Idris leaned back, studying him. "Your daughter?" The words landed too close. Mr. Thomas's throat tightened. "She's fine." Idris made a soft sound. "When you say fine like that, it means blood is on the floor somewhere." Mr. Thomas stared through the windshield. "She called me an Uber." Idris blinked. "What?" "In front of her coworkers, like I'm a stranger." Mr. Thomas's hands flexed. "She got in the back seat." Idris was quiet for a moment, then asked carefully, "Did you say anything?" Mr. Thomas's voice turned rough. I couldn't humiliate her. I couldn't—" He stopped, the sentence breaking. "She humiliated me instead." Idris exhaled slowly. "My brother once pretended he wasn't his brother when we met his boss. I didn't speak to him for a year." Mr. Thomas looked at him. "And?" Idris shrugged. "I didn't forgive him because he begged. I forgave him because my mother was dying, and she said, 'Don't let my children hate each other when I'm gone.'" Idris looked at Mr. Thomas. But I never forgot. He had to rebuild respect. Rebuild. Mr. Thomas drove on, the word heavy in his mind. That Friday, Mr. Thomas's taxi started coughing like an old man climbing stairs. He ignored it.
The engine jerked again. He ignored it again. The third time, the taxi shuddered and died right in a turn lane. Horns exploded behind him. A man leaned out of his car window and shouted, "Move it!" Mr. Thomas turned the key again and again. Nothing. He sat there for 1 second, frozen, then pushed the door open, jumped out, and waved apologetically as cars squeezed around him. A traffic officer approached, annoyed. "You can't leave this here." Mr. Thomas's voice was tight. "I'm calling a tow truck." He stepped onto the sidewalk, breathing hard. His taxi, his livelihood, sat in the road like a collapsed animal. He pulled out his phone, and for one reckless second, he almost called Patricia. Almost. His thumb hovered over her name. His mind flashed an image, her face, her coworker's eyes, the word Uber hanging between them like a verdict. He backed out and called the tow service instead. The mechanic looked at the taxi and made a face. "This car has been begging for mercy." Mr. Thomas tried to laugh. "It's stubborn." The mechanic shook its head. "Stubborn costs money. Transmission is slipping, and your alternator." He sighed. "How do you want to pay?" Mr. Thomas stared at the floor. "How much?" The number the mechanic said made Mr. Thomas's stomach drop. He left the shop with his shoulders heavier than when he'd entered. No taxi meant no income. No income meant no repairs. No repairs meant nothing. He took the bus home, sitting by the window watching the city pass like it belonged to someone else. That evening, he found a card in his pocket. Helen Morrison, the retired teacher he'd met weeks ago when her dog had sniffed his shoes while he waited for a tow in a nicer neighborhood. She had smiled at him like he mattered, like he wasn't invisible. At 9:11 p.m., he called her. Helen answered on the second ring. "Thomas, is everything all right?" Mr. Thomas hesitated. "No, but I didn't want to call anyone else." Helen's voice softened instantly. "Tell me." He didn't tell her everything that night, not yet. He just told her his taxi had broken down, and he felt tired. Helen said, "Come tomorrow morning. Coffee. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. Just come." The next morning he went. Helen had already ordered a coffee and a pastry for him. "You look like you've been carrying a sack of stones." Mr. Thomas sat down slowly. "It's my daughter." Helen didn't interrupt. She waited. And because she waited, he spoke. He told her about Patricia's call, the office tower, the coworkers, the word Uber hanging between them like a verdict. Helen listened without flinching. When he finished, she didn't offer quick comfort. She didn't say, she didn't mean it. Instead, she said, "That was cruel." Mr. Thomas blinked. It hit him harder than he expected to hear someone else name it. Helen continued, controlled but firm. "It was cruel, and it was cowardly. She used you to protect herself." Mr. Thomas stared into his coffee. "I raised her better." Helen's voice softened. "You did, but fear can make good people do ugly things." Mr. Thomas swallowed. "So what do I do?" Helen leaned in. "You stop helping her hide the truth. You stop cooperating with your own erasure." Mr. Thomas's jaw tightened. "She's my daughter." "And you are her father, not her secret," Helen replied. Mr. Thomas exhaled. "If I confront her, she'll say I'm embarrassing her again." Helen's eyes held his. "Let her feel embarrassed, not because you are shameful, but because she behaved shamefully." Mr. Thomas went silent. Helen asked, "Do you think she knows what you sacrificed?" "She knows I worked." Helen shook her head slightly. Knowing you worked is not the same as knowing what it cost you. Mr. Thomas's voice dropped. It cost me everything. Helen slid a small notebook toward him. Write it. He stared at the notebook like it was a weapon. I'm not educated like that.
Helen said, "Truth doesn't need fancy grammar." He picked up the pen. His hand trembled at first, then steadied as the words came. Not pretty, not polished, raw. He wrote about Patricia's mother leaving, about nights Patricia cried with fever and he had no money for a clinic until a neighbor loaned him cash. He wrote about driving until his eyelids burned, about missing meals so Patricia could pay for exam fees. He wrote about being proud anyway, even when passengers slammed doors in his face and called him just a driver. He wrote about the moment Patricia called him an Uber and how he'd felt like his heart fell out of the car onto the pavement. He wrote one sentence he didn't plan, and when he wrote it, his eyes blurred. "I can survive poverty. I cannot survive being your shame." He sat back, breath shaky. Helen read quietly, then looked at him with wet eyes. "You'll give this to her?" Mr. Thomas nodded once. "Yes." Helen added, "And if she doesn't respond, if she chooses pride, then you will still know you told the truth. You will stop begging for scraps of respect." 2 days later, Mr. Thomas went to the office tower again, this time on purpose, this time with the letter in his pocket like a stone. He waited at the curb until Patricia appeared. She stepped out with coworkers, 2 women and a man this time. She laughed at something the man said, her hand lightly on his arm. Mr. Thomas stepped forward. "Patricia." Her smile vanished again. The mask tried to return. One coworker glanced between them. "Patricia, do you know him?" Patricia's throat moved. She opened her mouth. Mr. Thomas lifted his hand, cutting her off before she could lie again. His voice was calm, dangerously calm. "Don't." Patricia froze. Mr. Thomas looked at the coworkers. "Good evening. I won't take much of your time. I just need to speak to my daughter." The coworkers looked uncomfortable. The man muttered, "We'll see you Monday," and they walked away, but not before one of the women glanced back with curiosity that felt like judgment. Patricia hissed under her breath, "Dad, why are you doing this here?" Mr. Thomas pulled out the folded letter and placed it in her hands. He didn't shove it, he didn't beg, he simply gave it. "Read it, not in the elevator, not later when you're half asleep. Read it when you can't run from it." Patricia stared at the envelope like it might burn her. Mr. Thomas added, "If you ever call me again and I come for you, you will not put me in the back seat." Patricia's eyes flashed, defensive. "Dad, you're being dramatic." Mr. Thomas's voice dropped. "I'm being honest." Patricia swallowed. "Okay." He turned to leave. Patricia called after him, quieter. "Dad, I'm sorry." He didn't answer. He kept walking. For 5 days there was nothing. Mr. Thomas took temporary work at a small corner shop, helping unload deliveries for cash. It was humiliating in a different way. His back hurt, the pay was small, and the young supervisor talked to him like he was slow. At night, Mr. Thomas lay on his bed staring at the ceiling, wondering if he had just pushed his daughter further away. On the 6th day, at 8:03 p.m., someone knocked on his door. Mr. Thomas opened it. Patricia stood there, without makeup, without the corporate armor. Her eyes were swollen, her lips trembled, her shoulders shook as if she'd been holding herself together with force and it had finally failed. She didn't greet him. She broke. "I'm sorry," she said, and then the words poured out like she couldn't stop them. "I'm so sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry, Dad." Mr. Thomas stepped back to let her in. Patricia walked into the small apartment and stopped like she didn't know where to stand. She looked at the couch, the table, the worn curtains, the framed photo of herself at 8 years old holding his hand at a school gate. She touched the photo with 2 fingers. "You kept this," Mr. Thomas said quietly. "I kept everything." Patricia turned, tears running freely now. "I read the letter." He waited. Patricia took a step towards him, then another, like she was approaching someone dangerous. She whispered, "I didn't know. I didn't know you went through all that and still smiled at me.
I didn't know you skipped meals. I didn't know you—" She choked. "I didn't know you were lonely." Mr. Thomas's throat tightened, but he kept his voice steady. "You never asked."
Patricia winced. "I know." She wiped her face with her sleeve, messy and unguarded. "I need to tell you why." Mr. Thomas crossed his arms. "Tell me." Patricia breathed in, shaky. "At work, everything is performance. Everyone is watching. People pretend it's merit, but it's not. It's image. Where you live, what you wear, who you know, what school your parents went to, everything." Mr. Thomas didn't move. "And my existence doesn't fit." Patricia flinched. "It wasn't you. It was me. I wanted to belong so badly I started cutting off the parts of myself that felt poor." She said the last word like it tasted bitter. Mr. Thomas's eyes hardened. "I am poor." Patricia shook her head violently. "No, Dad, listen. Your bank account is not your worth. Your job is not shameful. I made it shameful in my mind because I was terrified someone would look at me and see that I came from the bottom, like it would make me less." Mr. Thomas asked, "Did it make you feel more?" Patricia's face crumpled. "No, it made me feel sick. It made me feel like a liar." She stepped closer, voice breaking. "When I told them you were Uber, my stomach turned. I hated myself while I was saying it, but I couldn't stop. I was already in it. I was already performing." Mr. Thomas stared at her, voice low. "And I was the cost." Patricia nodded, tears spilling. "Yes." Silence stretched. Then Patricia whispered, "I sat in the back seat because I didn't want them to see me treat you like a father. I wanted to control the story." Mr. Thomas's jaw tightened. "You controlled it by erasing me." Patricia covered her mouth and sobbed once, sharp and painful. "I'm sorry." Mr. Thomas didn't rush to comfort her. He let her feel it. Not because he wanted revenge, but because he wanted truth. When she finally lowered her hands, he asked, "Do you love me?" Patricia looked up, desperate. "Yes." "Are you proud of me?" Patricia nodded quickly. "Yes, I am. I am proud. I'm ashamed that I ever—" Mr. Thomas lifted a hand. "No. Answer like you mean it, without the panic, without the performance." Patricia took a shaky breath and said, firm, "I am proud of you, Dad. I am proud you worked. I am proud you didn't abandon me. I am proud you didn't turn bitter. I am proud you stayed." Mr. Thomas felt something in his chest loosen, just slightly. Patricia rushed on. "I want to fix it. I don't know how, but I want to. I want to start with something simple." Mr. Thomas asked, "Like what?" Patricia wiped her face again. "Your taxi. You said in the letter it broke. Is it fixed?" Mr. Thomas hesitated. His pride rose automatically. "I'll handle it." Patricia's eyes flashed. "No, let me do one thing without you protecting me from the consequences. Let me carry some weight." Mr. Thomas studied her. Patricia pulled out her phone with trembling hands. "How much did the mechanic quote you?" Mr. Thomas gave the amount. Patricia didn't blink this time. She typed, then held up the screen. "Confirm your account number." He hesitated again. Patricia's voice turned pleading, but steady. "Dad, please, let me be your daughter." He gave her the details. The transfer went through. Patricia exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for months. "Good. Tomorrow you call him. You fix it." Mr. Thomas nodded once. "Thank you." Patricia stared at him, then asked in a small voice, "Do you hate me?" The question landed heavy. Mr. Thomas's eyes burned. "No." Patricia's face crumpled again. "How?" Mr. Thomas swallowed. "Because I'm your father, and because hate would finish what your shame started." Patricia reached for him, slow, asking permission without words. Mr. Thomas let her hug him.
She held him like she was terrified he would disappear. "I'm sorry," she whispered again and again. Mr. Thomas closed his eyes. He rested his chin lightly on her head. "If you're sorry, then change." Patricia nodded against his chest. "I will." 2 weeks later, Patricia called him mid-morning. "Dad, are you working today?" "My taxi is back," he replied cautiously. "Yes?" "Good," Patricia said. "Pick me up at 6. Mr. Thomas paused. "Your car is broken again?" Patricia's voice was calm. "No."
"Because I want my father to pick me up," she said simply. "Not an Uber, not a secret, my father." His throat tightened. "Patricia," she interrupted gently. 6 o'clock, same spot. And Dad? Yes? Don't park down the street. Don't hide. Pull right up front. At 6, Mr. Thomas pulled up to the tower. Same glass, same curb, same stream of polished people. But he wasn't trembling this time. Patricia walked out with 2 coworkers. Mr. Thomas recognized one of them as the woman who'd questioned the taxi before. Patricia saw the taxi and lifted her hand, waving high. Not a small wave, a wave meant to be seen. She walked straight to the passenger side and opened the front door. The front seat. Mr. Thomas's chest tightened so hard it almost hurt. Patricia turned to her coworkers and said, clear, steady, "This is my dad, Mr. Thomas. He's the one who raised me. He drove this city for 20 years so I could stand in that building." The coworkers' faces shifted. Surprise, then something like respect. The woman stepped forward. "Your dad? Oh, hello, sir." Mr. Thomas nodded. "Good evening." The coworker added, awkward but sincere, "Patricia talks about her work a lot, but she never mentioned." Patricia cut in, not harsh, just honest. "I didn't mention him because I was wrong. I'm correcting it." Silence. Then the male coworker said, "That's admirable." He looked at Mr. Thomas. "You must be proud." Mr. Thomas glanced at Patricia. She was watching him, waiting. He said, "I am." Patricia smiled, and it wasn't the mask, it was her. She got into the front seat and shut the door. Mr. Thomas started driving. Patricia looked out the window for a moment, then said quietly, "My coworkers invited me to a networking thing next week. They said bring family. I told them I'm bringing you." Mr. Thomas almost laughed. "Family at networking?" Patricia shrugged. "They're trying to look human." He glanced at her. "And you want me there?" Patricia turned to him. "I need you there. I need to stop living like I'm 2 different people." Mr. Thomas's eyes stung again, but he focused on the road. "All right." They drove in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Patricia said, "Dad, I told Michael too." Mr. Thomas glanced. "Michael?" Patricia nodded. "My boyfriend." Mr. Thomas's voice was careful. "What did you tell him?" Patricia swallowed. "I told him what I did, about calling you Uber, about the back seat, about being ashamed." Mr. Thomas's stomach tightened. "And what did he say?" Patricia's eyes glistened. "He said, if you can do that to your father, what will you do to me when you're afraid?" Mr. Thomas stayed quiet. Patricia continued, voice trembling. "He said he loved me, but he didn't like the person I was being. He told me he wasn't dating a resume, he was dating a woman, and if I couldn't honor my father, I wasn't ready for a future with him." Mr. Thomas exhaled slowly. "That's a hard thing to hear." Patricia nodded. "It was, but it was fair. It woke me up." She looked at him, small again. "Are you disappointed in me?" Mr. Thomas tightened his lips. "I was." Patricia flinched. He added, "I am also proud that you're trying now." Patricia's face softened. "Thank you." At the networking event a week later, Patricia held Mr. Thomas's arm as they walked in, not guiding him like he was fragile, linking him like he belonged. A woman in a sharp white suit approached Patricia immediately.
Patricia, you made it. Patricia smiled. Yes, and this is my father, Mr. Thomas. The woman blinked. Oh, nice to meet you, sir. What do you do? Patricia answered before Mr. Thomas could. He drove a taxi for most of my life. He raised me alone. The woman's expression changed, impressed despite herself. Alone? That's wow. Mr. Thomas kept his posture steady. It wasn't easy. The woman nodded. I can imagine.
As the evening went on, something shifted. People didn't treat Mr. Thomas like furniture. They asked him questions. They listened. Some of them even looked uncomfortable, like they had parents they didn't call enough. Patricia stayed close, not hiding him, not abandoning him to the edges of the room. At one point, a younger colleague said to Patricia, "I didn't know you came from that background." Patricia held her gaze. That background is the reason I'm here. Later, in the car, Patricia exhaled shakily. I thought they would judge me. Mr. Thomas asked, "Did they?" Patricia shook her head. Some looked surprised, but nobody laughed. Nobody thought less of me. If anything, they looked at me like I was real. Mr. Thomas nodded, because you were. That night, Mr. Thomas sat alone after dropping Patricia off, hands resting on the steering wheel, staring at the streetlights. He realized something that made him both sad and relieved. Patricia didn't need to be perfect. She needed to be honest. And he didn't need to beg for respect. He needed to require it. A month later, Mr. Thomas got another knock at his door, this time in the afternoon. He opened it to see Patricia standing with Michael beside her. Michael held a small gift bag. He looked nervous, but his eyes were direct. "Mr. Thomas," Michael said, "thank you for seeing me." Mr. Thomas studied him. "Come in." They sat. Patricia kept fidgeting, like she wanted to control the conversation and couldn't. Michael cleared his throat. "Sir, I wanted to introduce myself properly. I've been with Patricia for a while. I should have met you sooner." Mr. Thomas didn't answer immediately. "Why didn't you?" Michael glanced at Patricia, then back. "Because Patricia didn't bring me." Patricia's cheeks flushed. Michael continued, "But she told me everything recently, and I'm here because I care about her, but I also respect you. I grew up with a father who worked with his hands. I understand what it means to sacrifice." Mr. Thomas watched him closely. "So what are you saying?" Michael took a breath. "I'm saying I want to marry your daughter one day. Not today, not to rush, but that's where my intentions are." Patricia's eyes widened. "Patricia, Michael." He held up a hand gently. "Let me finish." Michael turned to Mr. Thomas. "I'm not asking for permission today. I'm asking for a chance to earn your trust." Mr. Thomas's chest tightened with emotion he didn't expect. He looked at Patricia. She looked terrified, like she expected him to punish her through this moment. Mr. Thomas spoke slowly. "Trust is earned." Michael nodded. "Yes, sir." Mr. Thomas held Michael's gaze, "And respect is required. In this family, we don't hide each other." Patricia swallowed hard. "Understood." Mr. Thomas nodded once. "Then we can start." Patricia's eyes filled with tears again. She reached for her father's hand under the table, squeezing like she needed the anchor. After Michael left, Patricia stayed behind. She sat on the couch, shoulders slumped. "I don't deserve a second chance." Mr. Thomas sat across from her. "You don't deserve it. You receive it." Patricia looked up. "Why?" Mr. Thomas's voice softened. "Because if parents only loved children who never failed, no one would be loved." Patricia covered her face and cried silently. Mr. Thomas didn't tell her to stop. He let her empty out the poison of who she used to be. Weeks turned into months, and the change became consistent, not performative. Patricia started calling twice a week, even when she was busy. Not to report achievements, to ask how he was sleeping, what he ate, whether he needed groceries.
She brought him to her apartment and showed him the photos she had finally put on the wall, not hidden in a drawer. She introduced him to friends, to neighbors, to people who had only known Patricia, the corporate star. And every time she said, "This is my dad," she said it like she was healing something in herself. One evening, Mr. Thomas's taxi passed that same office tower. He wasn't picking Patricia up, he just happened to be driving a passenger past it. The passenger, a young man in a suit, looked out the window and said, "I hate this place. It's all ego." Mr. Thomas asked, "Why do you stay?" The man shrugged, "I want to be someone."
Mr. Thomas nodded slowly, eyes on the road. Be someone at home first. The passenger frowned. What do you mean? Mr. Thomas didn't answer. He didn't need to, because the lesson wasn't for the passenger anymore. It was a lesson he and Patricia had already paid for. Months later, on a Sunday afternoon, Patricia arrived at Mr. Thomas's apartment with a small box and a trembling smile. She sat down and placed the box on the table between them. Mr. Thomas eyed it. "What is this?" Patricia's voice shook. "Open it." He opened the box and found a framed photo. It was a picture from that networking event, Patricia standing beside him, holding his arm, smiling like she had nothing to hide. Under the photo was a small plaque. "My father drove so I could fly." Mr. Thomas's vision blurred. Patricia whispered, "I wanted something in your house that reminds you, when I'm not here, that I'm not ashamed. Never again." Mr. Thomas set the frame down carefully, like it was glass made of emotions. He cleared his throat. "You can't undo what you did." Patricia nodded. "I know." He looked at her. "But you can become someone who would never do it again." Patricia's lips trembled. "That's who I'm trying to be." Mr. Thomas nodded slowly. "Then keep trying. Even when you're promoted, even when you have children, even when your world gets bigger." Patricia leaned forward, tears falling. "I will." They sat together, the photo between them, the room quiet but warm. And Mr. Thomas realized his daughter hadn't just returned to him. She had returned to herself. If you watched this far, say something in the comments. Have you ever been treated like someone's secret? Or have you ever made someone you love feel small? Share your thoughts. Someone reading might need that honesty today. If this story moved you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one.